today felt almost like a two-part writing session, in that I spent a time in the library here going through and making, just edits to my story, and making corrections here and there. But I also spent a good deal of time as well researching agents, which is what you're seeing right now on the screen. I'm basically going through different agents' profiles and just looking at ones that would be potentially good fits for my story. And so that made up basically the second half of my day. At this stage, I figured it's probably a good time to start going over, basically what to look for in agents and offer my opinion and all that. Again, at some point, I'll need to make an actual instructional video where I go over more of this. But when it comes to agents, you need to understand, I suppose, a couple things. The first is that realistically, in all honesty, there's maybe 25 agents out there that are going to be a great fit for your book. Maybe 25 agents. That's it. There's a lot of people that wear the hat of agents that don't necessarily, how do I say this? They aren't necessarily going to be able to do a whole lot for your book, and maybe, and they kind of run that gambit, right? They run the gambit from being okay to, complete frauds, which there is. I mean, the majority of them obviously are not, but just on that sliding scale there are some that are, and you need to be aware of that. But there are ones that are kind of middle of the pack, or ones that are kind of lower end, that may not be able to represent your book well, that may not be able to get any kind of deal at all. And so you need to go in with that awareness. So you need to do your homework. That's ultimately what I'm trying to impress upon you, is the idea that you need to do your homework, that, and try to think that, okay, 25 agents, and if I don't hear back, maybe that's the end of this project. Now, there are counterpoints to this, a lot of them. I have a friend that is published who queried, I think, over 100 agents before they got one. They actually spent a year doing what they call the Centurion, which for them was like they can't. Basically, the idea was that they wanted to be rejected by 100 different agents. That was basically their goal. That way, they wouldn't have that fear, that worry of submitting, right? Get a rejection, good. That's my goal, to be rejected. So there is something to be said for querying a lot of agents and casting kind of a wide net and just seeing, and trying to get, and being persistent with that process. But realistically, I still think there's maybe a quarter, maybe 25 that are going to be really good fits, that can represent your book well, that know kind of what your vision for this book is going to be, and that can handle it well. I do. If someone's got a different opinion on that, like I said, feel free to argue about it with me in the comments. But I still feel like there's maybe 25 that are going to be really, really good fits. And so with it, the process of looking for an agent is a bit like, it's weird. It's a bit like internet dating, right? In that there's a lot of people that are potential candidates, but you sort of have to go through and kind of figure out, all right, which ones are realistically going to be people that I want to date, right? It's the same thing. There's a lot of candidates, but which ones actually represent my genre, which ones represent my type of book, which ones tend to have, a bit of a personality that they've put in their little bio that maybe I tend to mesh well with. And you have to find those individuals, and it takes more than just looking at a page. You're seeing me looking at a page here. This is me just looking at potential people I'm going to query. This is just me doing that and then copying and pasting it over and all that. You have to go further. You have to see who they've represented. You see kind of the success that they've had before. You need to see, amongst other things, the good and the bad reviews if they're out there. And you also need to see for them what specifically they're looking for. Like if you follow their Twitter, if you follow any kind of articles they've read, you need to read those, because you've got to figure out what they're looking for specifically. and then you need to match up your story to that, or in essence, sell the points of your story that match up to that well. It's like internet dating, and it's like applying for a job application, right? Yeah. When you make up a resume, you have to make your resume tailored a bit towards what the hiring what the hiring rep basically is looking for. So the hiring rep says they're looking for these items here. You need to highlight that in your resume really, really well. It's the same thing. If an agent says they're looking for, I don't know, a time-traveling story about a dog that goes back in time and saves the world, you better highlight in your book that if you wrote that type of book, you need to highlight, hey, time traveling and dog in your query letter. You know what I mean? And so that's the thing to keep in mind. You have to be willing to tailor this really, really well to what they're looking for. And also get out of that scarcity mindset. That tends to be the other thing that people tend to get into, is they tend to get in the mindset of, I'm going to query just like the first 5 agents that I find, and if they say, no, I'm going to query the next 5 agents, and they go on, they get in this very mindset of scarcity, right? They sort of tend to not just be lazy in who they're looking for, but they tend to also give away a lot of their power. A lot of these writers are willing to just take any agent. You guys will take anybody. If a single person that wears the literary agent cap, that has no real great book deals at all, and no real history publication at all, you'll just take them. Oh yeah, they're an agent. All right, I'm sure they can help me out here, right? It's a step further than what I had before. I can tell my family at least I got an agent. You've checked off that box in a sense. You need to be stronger about that. You need to be much, much, much stronger in this process. And so what I would tell you is, understand that they're representing you. You are the product. Be a bit, again, I don't want to tell you to be like a prima donna or be a bit arrogant, but have a bit of pride in what you've done. Have a bit of pride in the work that you put in, and maintain that mentality. Maintain the mentality of, I've got an excellent product here. This book is fantastic. I'm looking for the right agent to represent it. Have that mentality, and you'll be a bit more selective about who you choose. And hopefully you'll pick someone basically that ends up representing your book well. It's tough. It's a tough process. I'm very giddy right now. I'm at the beginning of this process, so I'm feeling very, very optimistic here. But you might see me 6 months from now maybe talking about how, all these agents have not looked at my story. I've gotten these different rejections. I'm not a good fit, whatever. And now I'm looking at maybe another selection of agents, or maybe I'm getting a bit, maybe I'm getting a bit more lax, and a bit more loose on who I decide to have as an agent. It might happen. I'm not immune to any of this. The advice I give just kind of tells you, hey, this is how you should do it, but obviously, again, do as I say, not as I do always. And so with that, if you are someone that's looking for an agent right now, that's going through the process of looking for agents, keep it in mind. Keep that in mind, that you hold the power as well. Don't just surrender it. And find someone that's going to be a decent fit. It's better to potentially not have an agent at all than getting an agent that's not gonna, that's gonna basically, pardon my French, it's basically gonna dick around on your story for 6 months, maybe do something, maybe tries just one publisher to get a deal, doesn't go through, maybe they try to do an auction, doesn't go through, and you end up basically 9 months, a year from now with nothing, and you spent all that time doing this when really the agent wasn't fighting as hard, they weren't doing as much for you as perhaps they should have. You got to be critical. You have to be very, very critical about who you look at and who you choose and who they have connections with. It's vitally important. And unfortunately, they don't tell you this. They don't tell you this part of the story. They don't, unless you've gone, unless you've done this on your own, unless you've went to workshops on your own that have gone over how to deal with agents or what to look for in agents, unless you've maybe gone for to college, maybe get like an MFA or something, basically where you understood, how the business side of publishing works, you're not going to know this. So be aware of that. Be very, very aware of the fact that there are a lot of great ones, some not so great ones, and some in between. And your story basically kind of hinges about who you decide. So be very selective. All right. that's going to be it for me today. I'll be back tomorrow. Again, probably going to be doing maybe a bit more agent research here on this channel. If you have any kind of questions on that stuff too, let me know. I can make a whole video on this. If there's like some certain topics basically about this or about publishing, the business of it, let me know. But yeah, I will see you all tomorrow.